Hey, Stu.
Tom,
How are you, bud?
I'm good. Ready for another podcast.
Another podcast, Tactical Fitness Report with Stu Smith, podcast number 11. This one is entitled 10 Signs That Prove You're Ready to Serve in the Military. And Stu, your point here is that it's important to know when you are ready. And this comes from an article that you wrote by the title of 10 Signs You're Ready. So if those of you that are interested in seeing the details, go there. Just search that title with Stu Smith appended to the end, and you will find it on military.com. But the point here is that you don't join the military just because you've completed high school, junior college, or college. You do it when you are ready, and it's important to know when you're ready. So you wrote this article to help people understand that.
Yeah, I mean, way too many times I see people sign up for the military just because they can. Right? Just because they're 18 years old now and I'm out of high school, want to go sign up and do the military thing. And they pick a very challenging job like Navy SEAL or SWCC or Special Forces or, Rangers. And they haven't even tried taking the fitness test to get into it yet. They've never even pre-trained for it. They might have done some sports in high school, which is great. That's a good athletic foundation. But you haven't gone to the next level and started preparing yourself properly to just pass the entrance exam, right? For example, the Navy SEAL, right? Or SWCC, right? If you don't pass that swim, pull-up, push-up, sit-ups, mile-and-a-half run, within a 6-month period, you will not get that slot. The way it works right now is you go in, you go to the recruiter, get all your paperwork done, go to MEPS, medically get qualified. That's cool. And then they say, pick a rating. This is like your second choice, right? And if you pass the Navy SEAL fitness test, you now become an SO, which stands for Special Operator. Or if you wanted SWCC, you'd be SW or SB, and so on. But if you don't, you are kind of stuck in limbo there for 6 months trying to pass. And that your first job interview with that SEAL or diver instructor that's helping recruit you into the Navy sees you fail, you automatically become in one of two groups. You're going to be either in the passing group or you're going to be in the failing group, right? And that's no good first impression. So be ready to go on day one when you go to the recruiter, ready to crush that fitness test. And trust me, it's so much easier. Your process in delayed entry program is so much easier if you are physically ready to do it.
So, Stu, one of the first points you make in this article is reducing weaknesses.
Yes, that's critical. I think it takes a little bit of maturity to realize that you have a weakness. For instance, I was a powerlifting football player, as we have discussed in other podcasts. And what is a weakness of a powerlifting football player? Typically endurance or long distance, because anything over 100 yards for me was considered long distance. And it took me a while to prepare myself to be able to just run a mile and a half fast, much less get prepared for SEAL training, which every week you have a 4-mile timed run that has to be done in 7 minutes or 7-minute mile or faster. So those are challenges that you have to figure out. If you're an endurance guy, you're likely going to be weaker on the upper body. If you're a long-time swimmer, probably the impact of running might be more challenging for you. So reducing weaknesses, you have to turn your weakness into more of a strength.
And Stu, how do they identify their weaknesses?
Well, I think, the fitness test is a good measure of where your weaknesses are. Right? If you're not an endurance guy or you can't swim very well, that first test of 500 yards of swimming is going to likely crush you, or you'll see a failing score, or if you complete it. And then if you're kind of weaker on the upper body, the pull-up, push-up, sit-ups will expose that. If you're not a very good runner, that mile and a half will expose that. And you put them all together, and that's a really big combination of a hybrid strength endurance guy that if you're not preparing yourself for the triple combination of those three activities, you'll see where your weaknesses are real quick.
And then your second point is about not just meeting the minimums of the test, but crushing the test.
Yes. There are no minimum standards. You can't think about minimum standards. There obviously is a minimum standard, and all those minimum standards tell you is that you are physically able to go join the military, but you're not going to be able to compete on a high level. So if you're trying to get into a special ops program, once again, it is really all about competing, because sometimes those slots don't open up until you're well above the minimum standards on the physical fitness test. In fact, the Navy SEAL fitness test itself, they have a minimum standard that lets you say you've passed the test, but you won't go to SEAL training until you pass the competitive standards, which are significantly higher.
Gotcha. So the other one you were talking about is making sure that your workouts have a long duration.
Yeah, this is all about kind of getting used to work, right? So if you think about a day in military training, right, it is a full day. When you're going through from 5:30 a.m. until probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and some nights you're working all night, I mean, it's all day long. So you got to think about it as work. And where I see some of the bigger success stories are those who, one, can crush the PT test, but two, they go do another workout on top of it, or maybe, a 2-hour workout, or maybe a second workout in the afternoon. But after they've done something else, they've been on their feet all day, they're working, they're doing something else, staying active, right? You just can't go and, take a fitness test or work out in the morning and then take a nap all day and then, do workout again. That's okay if your body really needs it and you need to recover. Absolutely. Sleep is our number one recovery tool. But, if you're really trying to prepare your body for a day in, SEAL world, right, you have to be in the mindset of there's no 30-minute workout that's going to prepare you for a day of SEAL training, right? Or any military training for that matter. So you have to put in the time. Think of it as kind of like a Ironman triathlon guy. Those guys work out for hours, because they're going to be competing for typically anywhere. If you're really fast, it's a 9-hour event, right? If you're medium fast and really good shape and you finish, that's a 12, 13-hour event. So you got to put in the time. Now, it doesn't mean you have to put in a whole day of work and working out. Just put in the time being active and staying awake, which gets you to your next one. And I say no naps.
Yeah, right. That was the next one. I have to tell you, buddy, when I read this thing and I saw no naps, I had to laugh because that isn't in my paradigm is the point of naps, right? I mean, even regardless of whether you're doing the kind of work that our listeners are doing or the kind of work that I have been doing for the last 15 years, right? Building software companies. I mean, you don't take naps. So, get into the.
You work out in the morning. You don't get to take a 2-hour nap
right.
After a 4-mile time run at Buds. I mean, you are on your feet doing something every day, right? And when you screwed up, you're doing push-ups even more. So be active. Yeah, I think probably one of the toughest guys I've ever seen come through our program was a guy that worked out with us. He'd go do a PST with his recruiter right after, and he would be like, can't let the PST mess up my workout. That's good thinking. And then he was a construction guy the rest of the day. Spent 10 hours on a construction site. I mean, and he had no problem. I mean, we all have problems going through Buds, obviously, but he successfully graduated. And I think a lot due to the credit of his work ethic and just ability to handle a long day of work.
Yeah. And you make the point here too, that you've said this all along, that it's a running person's game, right? That you have to have a running foundation.
Yeah. If running's your weakness, there will be an event every week that you have to dig deep and just try to stay with the pack or meet the standard, right? And that's one of the things. Hopefully you can find something that you're really good at too, so you can have some moments of wins and successes. But if running's your weakness, you're gonna have to dig deep every day because you are running. Every week you have a 4-mile timed run, and those things that that just challenge your body. And if you haven't really gotten a good running foundation, you're susceptible to overuse injuries, tendonitis, shin splints, feet injuries, knee injuries, stress fractures. All of those things come into play if you haven't spent a significant amount of your time in preparation doing a good, solid, progressive running program, and maybe even building up to 30, 35 miles a week. Over time, you don't want to just jump right into 7 5-mile runs a week. Where you got to progress logically to get to that level. And that may take 4 or 5 months to do that.
The other thing about this, Stu, and I know most of our listeners or watchers are going to know this, but running is also a way to get from place to place during this training. And you know more about the broad aspect of the training. Mine is pretty narrow, but you're running from the moment you start the day till the end of the day, whether it's a timed run or not. You're running to chow, you're running back to the grinder. You just, running is not, and that's an aspect I'm not sure that everyone who's looking at these professions understands.
Right. And it's not just Navy too. I mean, Army guys, you're always running from range to range, or you got a ruck on, and it's, you're carrying an extra 50 pounds of your gear, so you're constantly on your feet. There's some schools that you can't sit down all day. I mean, you're on your feet all day. You're not allowed to sit down, so it's, depending on what, program you're going through is significantly challenging on your body if you're not used to that kind of activity.
I just remember watching the SAS guys train, and those guys were, at least when I was around them, they were in the don't sit down all day routine. The ruck on and going forth, just being out rucking all day.
Yes.
And day after day after day.
Yeah, that's still very similar to our Ranger school, our Ranger training, as well as the Army SF, training. You're constantly moving, and you're moving fast. If you don't have weight on, you're moving fast. If you have weight on, you're still moving pretty fast for a ruck.
And the swimming aspect, Stu, was number 6. And you've made this point. It's a really interesting point I hadn't thought about, but your point about most of the world is water. And if you're not comfortable in the water, you're not comfortable with most of the world.
Yeah, you're ineffective on 75% of this planet, is the way I put it. And it's true. I mean, swimming is a survival skill, first and foremost, right? If you can't swim, you could die, or you might not be able to save somebody that's in your family or somebody who's struggling out in the water, and you feel helpless, right? So being able to swim can help you save your own life as well as others. Now, on a military level, you don't have to be a world-class swimmer to pass SEAL training, right? People don't need to be Olympian, collegiate swimmer to get through any military training program, but you need to be confident in the water. You need to be competent, and you need to be able to just move your body without beating up the water too much so you're not exhausted. So you have to have a certain level of technique, good amount of endurance, and you can make it through, any special ops level swimming challenge.
So rucking, Stu, that was something we've talked about since the beginning of this podcast, but it comes up frequently now in almost every training, is this issue of rucking.
Well, I mean, if you're fighting a land war, right, which we have been now for over 15 years, you're going to carry a lot of your weight in a backpack on land. And, it behooves us all to, be able to carry weight, either 50% of your body weight, roughly, if you can do that. And, just for whatever reason. But, in the military, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it within a certain standard. You're going to have to build your body that you can handle, the weight. So that might require some deadlifts and squats and front squats and hang cleans just to get your hips and core, posterior chain, prepared for, that kind of load. But you also have to prepare your feet for it as well, and understand what good pair of socks means, and blister preparation and how to heal a blister real quick. And maybe we could do a separate podcast on just foot care, right, for this stuff. And but
should.
There's a lot out there on the internet too. If you Google it, you can see how to dry them out during the night and moisten them up with Vaseline and a big thick bandage if you need them. But anyway, rucking is like swimming, is one of those skills that you just have to practice, and it typically takes a lot of time, because when you are rucking, you're rucking for hours. So back when number 3, when I say longer workouts, typically rucking and swimming will add to your workout time. And depending on what branch of service you're going into, you need to do one or the other, or depending on what you're going into, both even.
Stu, I know a lot of our listeners and watchers are in the first responder game. And I watch, just being in New York City, as I am a lot, watching these first responders going up and down, Broadway or Amsterdam. Those guys, just the amount of stuff they have on.
Oh, yeah.
Just their equipment that's on their body, much less throwing something to carry beyond just the equipment they're wearing.
Oh, absolutely. Firefighters, SWAT team guys. I mean, they're all carrying tons of equipment. And that's another reason. It's not just for Army guys, right?
Exactly.
You get used to load bearing and moving equipment for any tactical profession.
Multiple workouts, Stu.
Yeah, multiple workouts. Once again, it kind of goes into number 3 with longer workouts. If you don't have time in your schedule to do a long 2-hour, maybe even a 3-hour workout, if you threw a ruck on top of it, you might want to break it up into 2 a day. Get something before work or before school, maybe something quick during lunch, 30-minute swim during lunch to work on your technique, and then in the evening, get your lift in, or if you need to make up a ruck, that's a good time to ruck in the evening when maybe it's not as hot in the middle of the day, or if it's in the winter, at least you got a backpack on and you can dress up and bundle up and ruck in the winter. So, that's how we always did it. We always broke it up, especially if we were, taking college courses and, the rest of the day you had to break it up. You didn't have time to do it. Now you can really, on the weekends, that's when you can really crush the longer workouts typically. And maybe instead of making your weekends your rest days, try to make a Tuesday or Thursday a rest day, so you get a rest during the week when you're at your busiest, and then use your weekends to, make up and learn how to work out longer. Because it's really all about work capacity, if you really think about it. And your ability to do work longer and effective is what's going to get you through these special ops level training programs. And
Stu, if I listen to everything you've said and read what you've written about this, there's a combination of 2 things going on. One is the long workout, the 1.5 hour, 2-hour workout, but then there's also the ability to execute those kinds of things multiple times a day. And so when I hear what you're saying, you need to have time for these very long workouts so that you're used to performing at a high level for 1.5 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours. But you also need the time to be able to zero in and do these things all day long, and so that you're comfortable working at 5 in.the.morning and at 5 at night, right? And even in through the darkness, which you and I both know is where we prefer to be. But
right.
But getting comfortable in those environments is really important.
Oh, absolutely. And, the one thing, we'll say with number 9, you have to get specific too, depending on what branch of service you're doing. Number 9 on this top 10 list is specifically address what you're getting into, right? If you're an Army Ranger, you need to prepare your body for a lot of running, good upper body strength, as well as rucking and carrying weight all day. Land navigation too. Got to practice land navigation. If you're trying to get into the Navy SEAL, it's a running man's game out there. You have to be a really good runner. There are some rucking things that you do, but you could combine the log and the boat carries as part of the same training almost as rucking, just preparing your body to be under that weight, as well. So, and if it's, PJ or Navy SEAL divers, you have to be a good swimmer. You have to be comfortable in the water. You have to be comfortable with breath holds and, but never swim alone. That's the problem. A lot of people practice these breath holds and underwater swims by themselves. And I swear I hate it so much when I see somebody, drown or near drown because they were practicing, underwater swims, and prior to SEAL training. I remember when my class went through that 500 or 50-yard underwater swim, we had 100 people at that time in my class, and 100 for 100 made that swim. We had 0 failures.
Wow.
But you know what? We only graduated 28. So what I'm saying is there's a whole lot more to worry about than that 50-meter underwater swim. A couple weeks of practice, while you're in the Navy and you have experts on the pool deck to teach you, as well as medical professionals to be there in case something goes wrong, that's when you really practice it. Now, you can practice a 25, but once again, tell the lifeguard, tell your buddy, if you want to try a 50, only do it when people know that you are doing it. Never do it by yourself.
And Stu, there are some facilities that won't even let you do it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our facility we use here, we can't do it. We can do several 25s, but we have to rest in between and not be hypoxic and, going into it. So yeah, it's dangerous. There's a reason why swimming pools won't let you practice it.
So the last topic, Stu, is about recovery, learning how to recover and recover quickly.
Yeah. My buzzword for recovery is you have to actively pursue recovery. That means throughout your week, throughout your day, you have to find a way to recover. And there's a lot of recovery tools at our disposal. Food that we eat, right? Eating crap food does not help you recover. Eating good food, proteins, amino acids, carbs, fats, all the good stuff, that's going to help you recover. Hydration, electrolytes, those two combine together, especially if you're sweating a lot. You need to check your electrolytes. A good solid workout too. Sometimes we overdo it, in this business. There's a fine line between, a perfect workout and overtraining. Sometimes we push to that low level, and you have to realize that and maybe focus on your sleep a little more that next night, or, make sure you're not going out partying all weekend, right? And just ruining your recovery and you feel like crap on Monday. I mean, I've been there. I know it can be done, but in the long run, it hurts, and you can actually start breaking down when you don't recover yourself. So a lot of times people say there's no such thing as overtraining. You're just under recovered. So focus on your recovery. And you can train really hard, but you need to balance it all. Think of it like a little balance. You got your sleep, you got your food, you got your hydration, your electrolytes, you got your workouts. And if any one of those are out of sync, whoop, you just tip the scale, and you're in that overtraining zone or under recovery zone, if you will, and you're just going to hurt yourself.
Stu, one of the things that you've taught me, and it's been I don't know that I understood it well enough early enough in my working routines, but stretching before you go to bed.
No, that helps
with
me.
Static stretching, and you say the lower back plan, which we're going to retitle, but take the static stretches out of the lower back plan, do them right before you go to bed. Boy, that has made such a difference for me. Waking up in the morning right away, being able to feel like I'm ready.
Good. Yeah. I mean, as we age, we get stiff, and if we don't practice, stretching, mobility work, we're going to get more stiff, and to a point where we're almost immobile and unable to move anymore. So,
well, I'll assure you, Ken, that last night Ken dropped by on his way for Easter vacation, and we did a boxing workout for about an hour. And without that stretching, Stu, I probably would be lying on the sofa behind me instead of sitting on the chair this morning. I'll assure you, it was really fun. But there's an example of making sure you do the work ahead of time so you can recover okay. And that that static stretching before you go to bed at late in the evening has really worked wonders for me. So I appreciate that from.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, part of the recovery is, take a mobility day. If you're weak, you're crushing the week, and by Thursday you feel like crap, maybe you look back and maybe you didn't sleep very well. Don't do a killer workout that day. Maybe do what we call the mobility day, where you get on a non-impact cardio, and every 5 minutes you hop off and you do some foam rolling and stretching. Do that 5 times, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off, stretching and cardio, and then get into the pool, tread water for about 10 minutes, no hands, work your hips, loosen your legs. If your shoulders are tight, just use your hands to tread. And, you'll find that, all those little dynamic stretches that you do prior to working out, you can do in a chest deep swimming pool, and it's phenomenal. And if you have any hip pain, lower back pain, legs, shoulders, you can work it all out, just for 10 minutes, in the medium level, 5 foot water, 4 foot water around there, and just, under resistance of water, do all those dynamic stretches like leg swings and Frankensteins, butt kickers. Great. Love those things. And that has made all the difference for me, especially, 48 now, still trying to run, 30 plus 35 miles a week, over 200 pounds too. It's my hips take a beating and I can feel it. But when I do that, yeah, good to go.
So summarize this one for us, Stu, about knowing when you're ready. So how do you know when you're ready?
That's a really good question. I like to say, if you can answer, these top 10 lists and say, yeah, I'm good, then you're probably ready. Right? If there's any one or two of them that you think you need to work more on, maybe take some time. It might take 6 months. In the end, don't just go join and sign on the dotted line to join the military just because you finished a chapter in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not the time to do it. The time to do it is after that chapter, but you should have spent some time preparing your body and even, growing as a person maturity wise, before you go make a decision. That could be a 20-year career, or it could be a miserable 4-year existence for you, enlisting into the military with, getting a job that you did not want. Right. So
yes, we've seen plenty of those.
Yes.
So Stu, how do we get people involved in this? How could you help them if they're really on the brink?
My articles on military.com are a great way to kind of see where we're going with all of our training and recommendations. But, email me, stu@stewsmith.com if you have questions. Come see us. We're in Maryland, here in Severna Park, Maryland, just right outside of Annapolis, and we run free workouts year round. See where you match up with guys that are leaving for various, special ops programs. And if you're way behind them, you might, want to spend a few more months training before you sign the dotted line.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable to put yourself in that mix informally ahead of time with people that can help guide you on this subject. All right, buddy, we've run out of time. That's Tactical Fitness Report with Stu Smith, number 11.
All right.
10 signs you're ready. All right, pal.
Thanks, Tom.
Later.
Thanks, Tom. That was awesome.
All right, bud.
We'll see you next time.